Have you ever stared at a headline and thought, how can a mother ever hurt her own child? But what if that same mother was suffering, lost in her own mind, torn between love and darkness? This is the story of Annabelle Mackey, a little girl whose life ended in tragedy, and of her mother, Alice Mackey, whose mental health crisis, bureaucratic gaps, and heartbreaking delusions would lead to a question the world wonders. Was she a monster, or was she a mum so broken that nobody could save her? On Sunday, 10th of September 2023, inside a modest home in Kingsley, Hampshire, little Annabelle vanished. Within hours, she would be found in a nearby pond, unresponsive. The person who reported her disappearance was her mother, Alice. She claimed someone must have snatched her. But as investigators unravelled the timeline, a darker truth emerged. By the time the court reached its verdict, Alice would admit to killing her daughter, but under the plea of manslaughter by reason of diminished responsibility. Her defense would rest on psychosis, delusion, and a fractured mind. The question remains, where is the line between love and horror, between desperation and intent, between mum and monster? Annabelle was born in January 2021 into a family that had fought for her. After years of miscarriages and fertility treatments, she was their miracle. Her father, Peter, worked in IT sales, and Alice had been a successful teacher in London with a warm manner and a reputation for excellence in her field. But after Annabelle's birth, something began to shift. Alice struggled. Her mental health gradually deteriorated. From the start, professionals watched. In May 2021, months after Annabelle was born, Alice was admitted under the Mental Health Act and placed in a specialist perinatal mother and baby unit. She battled postpartum psychosis, depression, and severe anxiety. Her mind sometimes turned against itself. Over the next year, she was treated by community mental health teams, but the relief was partial. The shadows remained. Her capacity to teach, to care, to function was never quite the same. When the family relocated from London to Hampshire in 2020, a new environment must have felt like a fresh start. But by 2022, her inner world was fraying. She was described by colleagues at her new school as vacant, distant, rarely smiling. Her engagements with children were uneven, her presence at times not there. Her identity as a warm, present educator was slipping. Yet on the surface, daily life tried to carry on. Alice and Peter raised Annabelle in a caring household. Her grandparents lived nearby and helped with childcare. Annabelle had a playroom, a supportive family, and a childhood full of hope. But internally, Alice's mind was collapsing. The medical experts would later testify she never fully recovered from the psychotic symptoms she had first experienced in 2021. In early 2023, Alice was prescribed antidepressants, sertraline, alongside antipsychotics, olanzapine. But sometime around January 2023, she stopped taking the antidepressant, and evidence suggests that from then on, her mental state steadily declined. People close to her noticed she seemed switched off. Her mother, a trained health visitor, remarked that Alice was distant from Annabelle. Her husband, Peter, confided to others that the woman he knew seemed to recede. By Sunday, the 10th of September 2023, things had spiraled. At around 5 p.m, Alice called the police to report that Annabelle had vanished. She said she had put her to bed around 3:45 p.m, left the front door open due to the heat, and returned an hour later to find the bedroom empty. She claimed she went outside, searched, and walked toward the pond, saying she found Annabelle there. She told the dispatcher that someone must have broken in and taken her daughter. The police arrived within about 15 minutes. They found Annabelle beside the pond and attempted CPR. Paramedics got a pulse. she was rushed to hospital. In the following hours and days, a forensic pathologist's report and detective work would strip away Alice's version. Post-mortem findings showed signs consistent with drowning, and that Annabelle had suffered brain damage from hypoxia, a prolonged cardiac arrest, and secondary complications. The medical conclusion was that Annabelle died as a result of drowning in the pond, albeit the experts hedged that some features were not totally definitive. Alice's story unraveled further. She had called her own mother after the incident and told her Annabelle had drowned, yet earlier insisted someone had taken her. She told police multiple inconsistent accounts. Over time, evidence overwhelmingly pointed to the conclusion that Alice, acting in a psychotic state, had carried Annabelle to the pond and held her underwater until she stopped struggling. But crucial in the legal outcome was the psychiatric evidence. Experts from both sides agreed Alice was suffering from a severe mental disorder, diagnosed as perinatal psychosis or psychotic depression associated with childbirth. At the time she killed Annabelle, her ability to rationally judge, to control impulses, and to form coherent intent was substantially impaired. The Crown accepted her plea of manslaughter by reason of diminished responsibility, meaning she was not convicted of murder because she lacked the full mental capacity to act with criminal intent.
On the 28th of July 2025, Alice pleaded guilty to manslaughter by diminished responsibility in relation to Annabelle's death. Then, on Monday the 6th of October 2025, at Winchester Crown Court, Mr. Justice Saini sentenced her to 4 years imprisonment, with credit for time served, acknowledging the distinctive tragedy of this case. The judge said what many already knew. This was a case without winners. A child died, a family shattered, and a mother condemned by her own mind. He said that she falsely believed her daughter was better off dead after suffering under a bad mother, and that she considered in her deluded state that this was some form of mercy for Annabelle, that she falsely believed Annabelle was not flourishing under her care and in fact was suffering under her care. The court heard Mackey had numerous miscarriages and ectopic pregnancies over the 5 years before she became pregnant with Annabelle, and following the birth she had suffered postnatal depression and anxiety, and was prescribed antidepressant and antipsychotic medication which she had stopped taking. The judge walked through the legal guidelines during sentencing, recognizing aggravating factors: Annabelle's vulnerability due to age, the distressing nature of the drowning of a toddler, and the betrayal of trust a mother brings. But he also weighed mitigation: Alice's previously good character, her remorse, and the medical evidence that she had believed, in her delusional state, that she was saving, not harming, her daughter. Crucially, the psychiatrist's view was that Alice's mental illness had persisted. She had never fully been herself since Annabelle's birth. The judge accepted that Alice's deluded belief was that she was protecting Annabelle from her bad mother, that she falsely believed Annabelle was not flourishing under her care and was suffering because of it. Ultimately, that yielded a 4-year sentence, with 2/3 to be served before parole eligibility, minus some 216 days already spent in remand. In the courtroom, the weight of all that suffering was heavy. The prosecution, the defense, medical experts, the judge, all agreed the legal resolution was deeply imperfect. A little girl was dead. A mother was convicted. A family would forever live with grief. Now, one part often less explored in media narratives is the role, or alleged lack thereof, of social services, mental health care pathways, and the council's duty of care. Did the systems around Alice fail her? Could intervention earlier have prevented this? In the publicly available dossier and court papers, there is little detailed criticism of the council or social services in this particular case.
Unlike some high-profile child protection failures, there is no record that social services had ever placed Annabelle or Alice under child safeguarding in the years leading to the incident. Nothing indicates formal child protection investigations or referrals in the prior years. The attention was mostly clinical, about Alice's mental health, rather than in a child protection context. However, the broader context is revealing. Many mothers with postpartum psychosis or severe mental illness fall through gaps between health services, social services, and community care. Perinatal psychiatry, especially in community settings, is under-resourced. Transitions from inpatient to outpatient, from specialist mother-baby units to general psychiatry often carry risk. Coordination between mental health teams and social services can be fragmented. A mother may be deemed mentally ill but not dangerous, so child protection oversight may never trigger. In Alice's case, she had been sectioned twice, once in 2021 and again in 2023 under the Mental Health Act, yet she eventually returned home under community care. That suggests some continuity of care, but perhaps not enough safety margin. In sentencing, the judge did refer to the evidence Alice had received mental health care. But critics might argue, should there have been more rigorous monitoring? Should agencies have flagged risk of relapse more aggressively? Could social services have intervened earlier, mandated supervision, or required home checks? These are challenging questions because mental health law and child protection law operate under different thresholds and confidentiality constraints.
We can't say definitively that the council failed, but the tragedy underscores how fragile the safety net is when mental illness and motherhood meet. It invites reflection. In a system where a mother's suffering is considered private health, how do we also protect a child's right to safety? Where does care turn into oversight? Where is the balance between autonomy and protection? From the narrative of the trial, we also see how Alice's life before motherhood was full of promise. Leading roles in education, strong relationships, vibrant personality. The contrast with her final state is brutal. The psychiatrist Professor Grubbin characterized her state on the day of the killing as deeply psychotic, with beliefs that her daughter was suffering because of her, that only death would spare Annabelle. He firmly rejected the idea she acted with cold calculation or innate cruelty. His diagnosis was that she was a caring but mentally tormented person who lost her grip entirely. In mitigation, her defense counsel painted a portrait of someone who loved her child more than any other, yet was overwhelmed hour by hour by voices and visions she could not control. Motherhood did for her, they argued, meaning the psychological weight of caring, of self-doubt, of returning to a fragile identity, all of it collapsed her. In her delusion, she believed she was doing the merciful thing. The judge accepted she was remorseful. But remorse doesn't bring Annabelle back. In her victim impact statement, Peter described relentless guilt, that he wasn't home when Annabelle died, haunted by thoughts of her suffering, imagining her final moments. He said he still tells her to sleep well, despite knowing she can never answer. Her grandparents spoke of stolen milestones, her first day at school, falling in love, having children, all gone. Their memories of her, a confident, empathic toddler who asked, "Do you want a cuddle?" echo with grief. When the judge announced his sentence, he reminded the court, mental health cannot excuse homicide, but it must inform our judgment. He said he believed Alice's capacity was substantially impaired, and that this was a tragic case where the starting guidelines had to be adjusted. The 4-year sentence reflected a balance between punishment, protection, and compassion for mental illness. As the court left, as the gavel fell, silence lingered. No winners, only loss.
So, what do we take from this haunting case? First, we must humanize, not demonize mental illness. Alice was not a caricature of evil. She was a human being whose mind betrayed her. That doesn't erase responsibility, but it changes our sense of blame. Second, systems must be better. Perinatal mental health needs more funding, proactive outreach, mandatory check-ins when risks rise. Social services and mental health agencies must coordinate more deeply, with eyes on both the parent and the child. Third, we must remember Annabelle, not as a statistic, but as a bright, dear little girl whose life is our responsibility now. We owe curiosity, not judgment, to this tragedy. In the end, was Alice a monster or a mum who lost herself? Maybe neither label is enough. In her worst moment, she was both, a mother consumed by psychosis. In her life before and after, she was someone loved, someone who sought help, someone trapped in a mind she could no longer govern. We can't change what happened, but we can carry the story forward to inform others, to listen, to intervene, to see signals early, to build safer bridges between mental health and child protection. Let Annabelle's story ripple. May it push us to act, not just feel. Because this is her legacy. And in remembering her, her laughter, her "do you want a cuddle?" her life was stolen too soon. We keep her alive on purpose. That no child should die this way, and no mother should suffer so invisibly that tragedy becomes inevitable. Thank you for joining me on Murmurs of Crime. If you think stories like Annabelle's need to be told to stop future tragedies, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing this video. Your engagement helps bring awareness to these critical system failures. And let me know what you guys think about this case in the comments below. I read and reply to all comments received. I'll see you again very soon. Until next time, stay safe, stay kind, and never stop listening for the Murmurs of Crime. Bye for now.